I was a middle school teacher once upon a time. Good evening. Oh, that makes me feel better. Thank you. We appreciate you being here at our first general session. To me, as someone that served as a former assistant principal and principal in the state of Texas, and having the wonderful once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to work with Dr. Young in UCA for 4 years, this is really important and personal to me, as the mission of the organization is about leadership preparation and quality leadership preparation. I always found it helpful and exciting that one of the goals of UCA is to interact with the practitioners, the ones that are actually doing the work on a daily basis. So we appreciate this space to do so. Raise your hand if you have served as a teacher, assistant principal, principal, central office. Fantastic. This should be a good conversation this evening. This is General Session 1, the Social Justice Keynote, the Texas Superintendent's Panel. We organized this panel to feature social justice-oriented superintendents in the state of Texas who have led major initiatives focused on the procurement of equitable outcomes in their districts. We will learn from them about their unique positionality to shape policies and practice in a better way to facilitate equitable outcomes for all children. Before we get started tonight with the panel, I would like to introduce our past president now, Dr. Mariela Rodriguez. Let's give her a hand.
Thank you, Bradley. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our first general session. I'd like to, of course, thank our newly installed president, Tara Chambers, and her planning committee for putting together a wonderful program for us these next few days. So thanks, of course, to Tara, to Bradley, to Terrence Green, Lolita Tabron, and Andreen Castro. So thank you for preparing a wonderful session for us. Also want to thank, of course, UCA headquarters staff for all of the hard work that they're doing. So please, when you see the staff outside the registration table and you see the student volunteers, please be sure just to give them a thank you and let them know how happy we are with everything they're doing for us. Thank you. So I'm also excited to thank our sponsors. And so we've had many people came through with everything, lots of great sponsors, key hosts like the ones you see here on the screen, the Wallace Foundation, University of Houston, Texas State. We also have several partner sponsors, and you see their logos there. Thank you. And then, of course, we also have our contributing sponsors. So we couldn't do this without you. Your support not only helps us get our initiatives off the ground, but it also shows your commitment and dedication to this organization that I love. And so, in addition to thanking, of course, our UCA headquarters, staff, and others, well, we would be remiss if we didn't thank our executive director, Michelle Young. She's given us 18 and a half wonderful years, and so we continue to celebrate her throughout the rest of this convention, and I'd like to invite her at this time to come up also for some words of welcome. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Oh, you all did a good job. Thank you. I'm so pleased to welcome you to the 2018 UCEA Convention. Every year, I look forward to this meeting, annual gathering of education leadership scholars. This is my 26th UCEA Convention, and my first one was actually right here in Houston in 1993. I was a doctoral student at the University of Texas, and one of my professors was the president of UCEA, Dr. Pedro Reyes. So it's really kind of wonderful to be back here and do all this reminiscing. I would say, too, that this organization is so incredibly important to so many people here. And as a doctoral student, as a faculty member, and now as with my leadership role in UCEA, it's been one of the most important professional communities to me. And I hope it has been a similar experience for you. And I think that this evening that I hope that you will think about that and think about how you might pay forward the mentoring that you've received through UCEA to the more than 400 graduate students who are registered for the convention this year, which is pretty extraordinary. I think the importance of paying it forward has been a common theme today. We talked about it in our UCEA governance meeting this morning, and it was particularly palpable in the room when we were introducing all of the different award recipients. 18 different scholars, by the way, received awards today at the UCEA Annual Awards Luncheon for their contributions to research, to mentoring, leadership, and service. And it ended with a beautiful group of stories about and from two gentlemen who I deeply respect, my colleague Dan Duke from the University of Virginia, and my former professor and forever mentor, Dr. Pedro Reyes. And I think it would be a wonderful tribute to them for us to ask them to stand and congratulate them once again. The Lifetime Achievement Award. That's a lot of pressure. Leading up to this event, the planning committee and the UCEA staff and I spent a lot of time reviewing and thinking about your work as we shaped and edited the program. And there are some really interesting and compelling sessions on the agenda. It's clear that people have been hard at work this year. One of the things that I wanted to point out to you that we're very excited about is the strands that the program committee designed this year. What are strands, you ask? Well, in our June planning meeting, we had a very generative conversation about how we could develop experiences that enable participants to both connect with people who are doing work that's similar to them, but then also to build some conversations across more atypical discourse communities. So the UCA Planning Committee identified 6 thematic strands across many of the accepted sessions, and you will see them listed in the program, but then also if you happen into one of these sessions, Sarah Dexter and the UCEA team have put together these really nice strand handouts. And the strands are focused on things like student voice, resistance and reform, instructional leadership. Each day that these are taking place, they happen in the same room. And at the end of the strand, you will have an opportunity to participate in a critical conversation. So if you're a scholar who is interested in issues of student voice, you could attend all of those different sessions and then have an opportunity to have a cross-session conversation that's facilitated by some really exceptional individuals at the end of the day. And again, our hope is to build some community among folks who don't often have a reason to communicate. We hope that convention participants will then take in several of these sessions, and it might actually spur a new line of research and some new colleagues. We really look forward to hearing what you think. It's definitely one of the questions on the post-convention, what do you call that? Survey, thank you. In addition to our UCA Awesome convention planning team, I'd like to join Mariella in thanking our headquarters team as well for their many contributions to the program this year. And I'd like to thank all of you for doing really fantastic reviews, putting in some really terrific program proposals, and I want to offer a special shout out to the 28 different sponsors that we had this year for the convention, and in particular, the way that the Texas institutions came together to sponsor this session. It was really very heartfelt to see. I believe it's 15 different Texas institutions that are sponsoring the convention. And of course, the University of Houston, which have supported this conference in a number of ways, including ensuring that we had a gavel this morning for our governance meeting. They tracked one down from the law school for us, so we really appreciate that. I wish you all a very meaningful and impactful and enjoyable convention. And please do tell me what you think about it.
So how many of you have seen the artwork on the front of the program? Seen the artwork? Yes, everyone? See, I need the full hand raising when I ask that question. How many of you seen the artwork on the front? Thank you. Well, if you know Houston well, you know that we have a lot of traffic, a good deal of traffic, and our students that put together that artwork that we were going to recognize this evening are on their way. So we're going to go ahead with the panel, and then at the end of the panel, when we dismiss everyone, if you could just stick around for one more minute, I want to introduce the young men and women who did the artwork at one of our historically proud schools that's close by, Worthing High School. And I promise not to call her out, but I see future Dr. Kylene Vasquez, who also helped with the project. Would you stand up, future Dr. Kylene Vasquez? She's one of the sponsors of the kids that help pull that together. She's going to be upset with me forever. This is really exciting for me to get this started in the sense that at the University of Houston, I am the director of the master's and the doctoral programs. And with the doctoral programs, we are preparing aspiring superintendents. And we know in today's climate, with all the complexities that exist, that's a big job. And so we thought we'd bring three amazing people here this evening to help enlighten us and allow us to ask questions as well. But before we do that, I want to introduce my partner, one of my favorite people in the world, Dr. Sonia Douglas Horsford. She will be emceeing this evening, and she, I believe, is the director of their Aspiring Superintendents Program, co-director. Let's give Dr. Horsford a hand.
Thank you, Bradley. Good evening, everyone. It's really great to be here, and I'm really excited about the discussion that we're going to have tonight. As Bradley mentioned, I am a co-director with Professor Jeff Young, who is actually here, of our Urban Education Leaders Program at Teachers College, and we are currently recruiting students for that program, if anyone's interested. But tonight we have three very special guests who have agreed to share with us their experiences around the work that they do in their school districts. And so at this time, I'd like to have them come up. And as they're walking up, I'll give you a brief introduction of who they are, and then we'll launch into a conversation around the work that they're doing here in Texas. So we have Dr. Kelly Crook here, and with a myriad of extensive experience in the public school environment and a product of public schools herself, Dr. Kelly Crook was named the first female superintendent of Del Valley Independent School District when she took office in December of 2011. Her financial acumen and long-range planning expertise stems from her experience serving for 6 years as an assistant superintendent of finance and operations and director of accountability for Del Valley ISD. Dr. Crook's background includes ESL classroom engagement in the Dallas ISD and Frisco ISD, service as middle school assistant principal in Leander ISD, and program specialist at the Texas Education Agency. Please welcome Dr. Kelly Crook. And to her left, we have Dr. Wanda Bamberg. After serving 41 years in education, including 11 years as the superintendent of schools for Aldine ISD, Dr. Bamberg retired in June of this year. Let's extend our congratulations to her. Yes. Of these 41 years, she has spent 36 of those years in Aldine ISD. She began her teaching career in Tuscaloosa, Alabama in 1977, and in 1982, Dr. Bamberg joined Aldine Independent School District as a middle school language arts teacher. She joined the curriculum department as a program director and later became executive director and assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction. She became superintendent of schools in 2007. Please, let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Wanda Bamberg. And last but certainly not least, we have Dr. H.D. Chambers, who has devoted the past 30-plus years to public education in Texas. Prior to taking on the leadership role as superintendent of schools for a Leaf Independent School District in the spring of 2011. Mr. Chambers served as superintendent for Stafford Municipal School District. He has also taught in the Aldine Independent School District and served in various administrative roles in the Cypress Fairbanks Independent School District. Please welcome Dr. H.D. Chambers. So to get us started, I think it would be good to just get a sense of the districts that you're working in. So if you could take a minute or two to just describe your school district and perhaps one of the biggest challenges or opportunities that you're currently facing and working on.
Good evening, and I am pleased to see people come to a session at 7 o'clock in the evening. Hope we make it worth your time. Alief ISD, for those of you not familiar, if you were looking at the city of Houston, and the city of Houston was a clock, we're at 9 o'clock. We're in West Houston, about 55,000 students, 90% eco-dis, and 45% limited English proficient, obviously highly urban. And I would probably, as it relates to the biggest challenge, and I think this is going to have at least the comments I'm going to make, one of the challenges we deal with is mobility. And the school district is 36 square miles, and so when you put 36 square miles and you put 55,000 kids in 36 square miles, there's really one place for them to live, and that's multifamily. So about 70% of our kids live in apartment complexes, which makes the mobility, and it just kind of exacerbates mobility with the economy and people chasing first month rent free and things of that nature. And if I had to put a single challenge that encompasses what we're dealing with as it relates to meeting the aspirational goals we have for kids, it's the fact they don't stay put long enough for us to have a meaningful impact. And so that would be a microcosm of what the issues we have.
Good evening. When I retired from Aldine, our population was about 65,000. That's down from 70,000. Over the last couple of years, we have been losing enrollment. Aldine, if you flew into Intercontinental Airport, you flew into Aldine ISD. That is where Aldine is located. And the community there has been established for a long time, but there's not a lot of new development. And I will tell you that percentage-wise, Aldine has the largest percentage of economically disadvantaged students in the Houston area. And I know that unless something has changed dramatically in the last 4 months. But again, with that economically disadvantage comes the population mobility that HD mentioned. And I will say that a challenge that we've had over the last few years is meeting the changing needs of our students. We've always had a large bilingual program. We've had a pretty good percentage, about 33% of students who would qualify as ESL or bilingual. But the student population is different. No longer are all the children coming from Mexico. They're coming from Central America. They're coming at an older age. And so I think a big challenge that we're having is being able to meet their needs and make sure they have access to the programs that we need to provide so that they can have opportunities to be successful as they continue through public education.
Good evening. Is this, I was like, there we go. Gosh, y'all were so succinct. Del Valley, we're the little baby of the group. We have about 11,000 students. If you have flown into Austin Bergstrom International Airport, you have flown right smack in the middle of Del Valley ISD. Square footage-wise, we are 174 square miles. We're the entire southeast corner of Travis County. Half of our students live in the city of Austin. The other half are in 7 other communities in unincorporated Travis County. Biggest challenge for us is we are not like those we are with. We are surrounded by somewhat Anglo, somewhat affluent school districts. 96% of the students in Del Valley are children of color. We are 85% qualify for free and reduced lunch. And close to 40% are LEP, even though everybody in Del Valley ISD is bilingual. And yes, I know it's pronounced Del Valle, but it was actually settled by Germans, and it's called Del Valley. So when we go to bilingual conferences, they get very upset with us. We know how it's pronounced, but it's Del Valley. Long before I got there. Because of that, it's a unique setting in that everybody around us, like I said, that is one of the fastest growing areas and most affluent areas of Texas. In fact, the housing costs in Austin have actually outpaced Houston and Dallas, which as a native Austinite is bizarre to me. Our property values are such that we became a Chapter 41 district this year, which means we are considered a wealthy school district. And next year we'll have to actually start paying money back to the state. That's how much property we have and how much growth we have in Del Valley, even though we have the least affluence out of anybody in the area. Like Aldine, everybody is being priced out of Austin. Average homes are getting close to about $400,000. That's for a 12 to 1,500 square foot home. And what that means is that everybody's moving further out of the city and moving into Del Valley. The average taxable value of my homes in Del Valley hovers around $100,000, and all the new construction coming in starts at $300,000 for a home. We are terrified. We don't know what it's going to do to our district to actually have a completely different demographic and dynamic moving in. So we're kind of all huddled together with our arms around each other, shaking right now, and trying very hard to preserve our culture, knowing that it's going to be probably overrun within the next 3 to 5 years.
Could you talk, I mean, you gave a great overview of the context, under 2 minutes, but could you talk more about the students and the families and how you would describe the local school communities that exist within your district?
We're feeding off your answers. So
Okay. So if you can think, if you just visualize an urban school district and you visualize community members who are used to being a suburban school district, and then you can visualize some older members who remember it when it was more of a rural school district. That's kind of what's happened to A-Leaf, is there's been an adjustment, a shift, like every other community across this country, of as populations move and demographics, demographics change. A-Leaf has been one of the areas that I've felt that there's been such a tremendous amount of effort into making sure that the school system met the changing demographic needs of the community. And I bring that up because there are some systems, there are some school systems, there are teachers in classrooms today who are still teaching the kids they thought they had 20 years ago. And they're teaching in ways in which it worked 15 or 20 years ago, but it doesn't work now. And so we place a lot of emphasis in terms of our community in working with parents and helping them to understand, for example, how important it is for your kid to be in school every day. Something as simple as that. And so our community and the makeup of our community is extremely mobile, as I mentioned earlier, but it's also extremely, it's a weird dynamic being this hybrid of a urban district and a suburban district. And if you've ever worked in either or, they have two different senses of feeling in the community. And A-Leaf has been transferring from that suburban district to an urban district the last 10 years. And that part of it, for those who are moving in, who are accustomed to being in an urban environment, it's a different transition. And for those who are still there, who are accepting this change that's happened in the last decade, it's been an adjustment for them. But A-Leaf ISD is the hub of, there is no A-Leaf, there is no city of A-Leaf. There is no mayor, there is no city hall. The school system, like many school systems, are the center and the focus of the community. It's just a very tight, urbanized community that sometimes thinks it's suburban and some people thinks it's a rural. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's...
Aldine experienced the change and the shift in the demographics before some of the other school districts did. When I arrived in Aldine as a teacher in 1982, we were about a third Anglo, a third African American, a third Hispanic. Now we're over 70% Hispanic, about 20% African American, and then because we have a small Asian population and some others, less than 2% Anglo. And so the population has changed dramatically, and over the years, the idea too that the economically disadvantaged has continued to grow. So I think that in working with our families, and last year, I'll just mention Harvey, most of you are aware, we lost about 2,000 kids in Harvey. And in the community of Aldine, a lot of the people who live in homes are rental homes. And what happened with a lot of them is that landlords said, well, I'm not gonna fix it. So people were able to get up and move, or they just moved. Or I am going to fix the home, and when I fix the home, I'm going to have to raise the rent because I've spent so much money in making the repairs. And a lot of the things that people were shown on the news about the homes that flooded in the different neighborhoods, they didn't show some of the neighborhoods in Aldine, but I assure you they had just as many. They had all the carpet and all the furniture out on the end of the street, just like the larger homes. But the difference is that a lot of people didn't have the means to be able to go back in and fix their homes. And then the other horrifying piece is that people just continued to live in them if they did not have the option to go someplace else. In having 84 schools, I think that that one of the things that we have tried to do is meet those changing needs with making sure our teachers are well trained, and that is an ongoing everyday thing. I've been around long enough to go through, remember the Larry Lazat, All Kids Can Learn? And what we've tried to work with our teachers over the course of the years, and I've done a lot with professional development, is, we did that, and then everybody was gonna learn the same thing. And then in the state of Texas, everybody was going to go to college, so your high school curriculum was the 4x4. And now, thanks to people like HD, we have a better graduation plan and a better diploma plan. So now we're trying to meet those needs to be sure that we're making all the opportunities make them available for students and parents to be aware, so that it's that constant changing in what we offer to make sure that our kids leave with different options than what we've provided for them in the past. And dealing with a community that is a lot of even though our children speak English, that a lot of our parents do not, they are not as in tune and don't often reach out for some of those resources to be sure that they understand the different programs for their children and that they understand what the opportunities are for their children. So those are some of the things in working with our communities that we are trying to do to make them more aware of what we offer for their kids and what's out there as opportunities for their students as they leave high school.
Man, that was really good. I totally forgot the question. Are we talking about the communities?
Describing.
Okay, sorry. I was just enraptured. Y'all are really good at this. Like me, Del Valley is a really, really odd place. We're similar to A-Leave. There is no city of Del Valley. And while larger metropolis like Dallas and Houston have a number of school districts where that's the case, in the Austin area we have one, and it's us. And so it makes it very, very difficult dealing with other governmental entities, and it's hard on our community. Our community is not accustomed to all of the growth and changes. We have a section, we go all the way up through to East Austin, almost to downtown, so we're very urban. We are growing very, very large suburbs out past the airport, but we also go all the way down to the Travis County line with Hayes and Bastrop. We have neighborhoods that just got running water about 4 years ago. So we're very rural as well. So like A-Leaf, we never know what box to check. Most of my time is spent on economic development and who's going to build the roads and the traffic lights, because when I talk to our community, that's what they want to know. They're good with the schools. We've never failed a bond issue. Anything we want, our parents support. But what they need is, where's the city? And it's hard to convince them that I really don't have as much clout as they think I would in that kind of role. As I stated before, we have 174 square miles. We don't have a single grocery store in that 174 square miles. So when they write about food deserts, they're writing about Del Valley. We do not have any doctor's offices or medical facilities. We got one dentist. We got a Super Smiles 2 years ago. But all of these, when you talk about, you research the suburbanization of poverty, this is the district you're talking about. We have one Capital Metro bus route. Even though we are in the city, we have one route that comes out there. And that's because long ago the district paid part of the cost to be able to transport our high school students to the local community college. Now, few of our high school students ride it anymore because we offer dual credit in the high school, and it's our community members that ride it now. It's just strange that you could have such high growth and such high needs at the same time in an area. And so most of our attention is actually focused on those types of issues. Because of the support they have for the school, though, I can tell you, hands down, we have the finest facilities in our region, much finer than the more affluent ones. We have just opened a 70,000 square foot CTE center with a full hospital and construction trades and biotechnology and everything our kids need. We maintain one very, very large high school. We're at about 3,300 right now. We'll probably get closer to 6,000 or 7,000 before we think about a second one. That's unusual, but it's because, honestly, we couldn't afford a second high school for so many years, and we were at the 50-cent tax cap that we are on 150 acres, and so we just started adding buildings. And we told our parents if they're going to have to learn to transfer buildings in college, then we're going to teach them how to do it in high school. We have 7 minutes between passing periods. We're going to go up probably to 8 or 10. If UT can build on 40 acres, we can certainly build a junior college on 150 acres. And our parents understand that and have been very supportive. But because of that, we don't really compare well to most of our other similar-sized districts because of the fact that we've chosen to do things a little bit differently out of necessity.
Thank you. So you're dealing with a lot of change. I think that's a commonality that you're experiencing across your districts as well as probably across the country. And issues of equity, have come up quite a bit, obviously, at the school district level. Could you name one or talk about maybe one particular initiative or some work that you've done that has actually improved and created equitable outcomes in your district?
Okay, so I think most would agree that when we start talking about equity, there's a difference between being equitable and equal. And one of the things that we've done in our school system, and it's I'm gonna give you two examples, but it'll be in the time it would take to answer one. Here's what I think is the most powerful way to provide, particularly students who come to us from less than desirable, less than favorable, less than advantageous backgrounds. The very first thing we have to do is we have to have expectations and standards that rise to the same level as any other child in any other environment, fully recognizing that they come to us with challenges. So one initiative, I guess, if it were to be called an initiative, is we began looking at how we disperse our teachers. I don't have any pockets in A-Leaf of affluency. Some districts are very, they got poor side of town and they got the wealthy side of town. Nor does Aldine. We don't have any wealthy side of town. But what we did notice is when we began looking at our teacher experience, our effective teachers, our quality of teachers, and we started looking at where were the teachers with the least amount of experience, as an example, we found they were in our most challenging schools. And so we began looking, and this was before ESSA required us to do this, but we began looking at, is there a way for us to begin redistributing what we consider to be effective teachers into a more equitable distribution of those quote-unquote effective teachers into the campuses that perhaps needed the most help. I don't know if I'd call it an initiative as much as I'd call it common sense, but it's attempting to put those instructors in front of the kids who need it the most. The second thing I'll be very brief on is going back to the outcomes that we desire for our students. We desire, and I think everyone desires, 3 outcomes. I want a student who can go to college, take a college credit-bearing course without remediation, period, whether it's 2-year, 4-year, I don't care. I want a student who leaves my school district with some form of credential, some form of certification that's meaningful and will get them jump-started into the workforce. And the third thing is I want a kid to be able to pass, who wants to enlist in the military, pass the ASVAB, both the physical and the academic component of it. We've built facilities. We've done some work in Texas on some policy issues, and we have invested millions and millions and millions of dollars, as have Aldine and Del Valle, on facilities that legitimize students who want to pursue other forms of post-secondary activities that just don't necessarily require a four-year bachelor's degree. And it's easy to say, but you also have to have an investment in it, both an investment in time, resources, money, and planning. And my goal was to legitimize every student's desire, as long as that desire led to a meaningful outcome moving past graduating from my school district. So those are, and that's a work in progress. That's an initiative in progress, and will be until I leave. But those are a couple of examples of what we're trying to do as it relates to not equal, but equity.
A couple of things that we've done in Aldine, and I'll start with the youngest children. We have full-day pre-K centers, and we've had them, as a matter of fact, just opened 3 new ones this year. And those really are to give our children a head start. And we do have head start in a few of the programs, but they are truly, and I will have to brag, they are just incredible pre-K programs. And if you ever are in the neighborhood and you want to come see a quality pre-K program, I've got like 10 you can see. And I say I just retired, so I
She's
keep
like, "It's
acting
still
like it's still mine." Actually, there is a wonderful, capable leader in Aldine now. Her name is Dr. LaTanya Goffney, who was the Superintendent of the Year for Texas last year, and she's doing an outstanding job. But just for a few minutes, I like to, those pre-K centers are outstanding. Another thing that we've really tried to do to make college available is our early college. We have one, and we're going to be opening a second. And one of the ways in Texas you get designated as an early college is you can't just screen for the highest performing kids. You have to be taking kids from around, all different GPAs and experiences. And that's difficult because you got to get them taking dual credit classes in their sophomore year of high school. But that has been a great equalizer for children, because basically and the parents refer to it as a scholarship, because they are leaving high school with their associate's degree, and if not an associate's degree, numerous hours. And then the third thing that I believe has been important in what we've been doing, it's expanding our CTE courses, but also we've just opened a brand new CTE high school in Aldine. If you're on your way to the airport, it's right off West Road, but an incredible facility that offers numerous the dental program, the nurses program, all of those kinds of programs, in addition to diesel mechanics and auto shop and those kinds of things, in addition to computer sciences and those things. And it's a comprehensive high school. So we are continuing to try to expand our programs to make multiple opportunities available for kids so that they can leave doing something that's meaningful to them and will be important to their families as they finish high school, and maybe go to post-secondary, maybe not. And I just have to say, it's like children. We've trained our children to think if they're not planning to go to college, that they're not doing a good thing. And we've got to untrain that. And I know that I've gone to the CTE events, and I said, well, now tell me, what are you going to do after high school? Well, I'm going to be a welder. And they drop their heads. And I go, well, that's great.
So you'll make more than my teachers.
Yes, there are great opportunities for welders. So we've got to train the parents and the students that there are meaningful things that, what in the Houston community, they tell us we don't have enough skilled labor. So, we want to be sure that children know all the great opportunities there are out there for them to choose what's best for them. So those are some of the things that we're trying to do to make sure that they are aware of what's available for them and what can be meaningful for them after high school.
I'll just touch on 2 things because I think they're interrelated. There is an inequity issue in Del Valle similar to Alief and Aldine. Every one of our schools has the exact same demographics. We don't have struggling schools and schools that aren't struggling. We all pretty much rise and fall together depending on what changes are made to the accountability system or to the test. So our issue is equity with their peers, with the districts that surround us, who have many more opportunities than they do. And even just getting, it took me 5 years to get the city of Austin to understand that they had more than one school district. We have, over 50% of our residents are actually city of Austin residents. And for the longest time, they would just meet with AISD and talk to Austin ISD. And finally, by God, I got a seat at the table, but it took me 5 years. The big issue that we have also is the fact that we can see the writing on the wall. Whether you're a wealthy district or a property poor district, the plain and simple fact is Texas does not fund their schools, their basic allotment for their students at an adequate level. And I say adequate because we all understand that you're never going to come up with this magical number that's going to make the world a fair and equitable place. But we're not even at bare minimum right now. And we're all heading for that cliff. And we know it. And we've watched our neighbors. Our neighbors are overbuilt, and they have zoning issues, and they have the good side of town and the bad side of town, and the east side and the west side. And so for the last 8 years, we have been rezoning our schools and making sure that our enrollment stays equal, our bilingual percentage, our economic disadvantage, every demographic stays the same. I have 9 elementary schools, and I will bus kids from one side of that 174 square miles to the other side if that's what it takes to even them out. We only have 3 middle schools, and we have 1 big high school, so there's no problem there. But it's for fiscal efficiency. The more buildings you open, the more fiscally, inefficient you are, the faster you're going to head over that cliff. The only way we can pay for our early college high school, we have dual credit, we have dual enrollment with the University of Texas. Everything everybody else has, by God, we're going to have it too. But the only way we're going to do that is we have elementary schools that have between 600 and 800 in every single one. We have middle schools that are 11 to 1200, and a high school that's just going to keep growing. And like I said, it's not even an argument anymore of whether we think that's right or whether we think that's good. It's the only way that we're going to be able to have the operating money to finance the programs so that my kids have an equitable chance as the ones that surround them.
Thank you. So one question that I wanted to pose, and then we'll open it up to the audience, is around leadership preparation. So many of us are researchers or faculty who are doing work in the field of educational leadership, and I wanted to know what university faculty, researchers, and organizations like UCA can do to help support the work that you do, as well as prepare future leaders. What are some of the things that we should be doing on our end?
Well, I can tell you right now, I wasn't prepared for the challenges that the diversity and communities bring about. So I'm in a district. We're like Wanda, and we're right at 90% economic disadvantage. We have 99 different languages spoken in our district, and only 2% of our kids look like me. And probably less than 2% of the adults in our community look like me. And one of the things I think a preparation program for a superintendent who's going to be going into a large urban area is that if you're going to be viewed just based on whether it's your demographic makeup or whatever, I think there needs to be some training on how does a superintendent, how does an individual go into a community and begin understanding that community and giving the adults, the parents, the people that are in the community a sense of comfort that that individual cares about their kids. Mm-hmm. And it's not a hard answer to that. I was told a long time ago, well, not a long time ago, when I got to A-Leaf 8 years ago, by a pastor. And in A-Leaf, if you can't find a religion, you're not looking for it, because there's a church on every corner. You may not find the one is the one you want, but it's there. But I was told by an African-American pastor of a large Baptist church, he said, HD, if you want to get to the core of how you get parents to support your school system and you, and you go in, you call up your local pastors and you ask them for 30 seconds in front of their congregation on a Sunday morning, no more than 30 seconds, and you stand up there and you say, my name is H.D. Chambers, I'm the superintendent of schools, I'm going to ask you to judge me on my actions, and I want you to know that I love your kids. And I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure your kids have a better life than you have and are better prepared to meet the needs of the economy, whatever world they're going into. Those are the things that we don't, the preparation programs I went through to do what I'm doing right now had absolutely nothing to do with the realities of what I'm facing. And I don't mean dealing with a school board or dealing with a upset teacher organization, or for those of you that live in collective bargaining states, I'm talking about dealing with the actual people and the individuals and the types of people in those communities that may or may not look like me, may not share the same experiences I have. And those are I know the Broad, and I know other organizations attempt to do that and put them in those urban districts. But coming out of a prep program, whether you got your EDD or your PhD or whatever D's you got, you've got to have a sense of how do you assimilate and again, not expect the community to think of you and to share those experiences, but how do you convince them and demonstrate to them over a period of time that you've got their kids' best interest at heart and you're going to give them every opportunity to change the trajectory that many of these families are in. That was a long-winded answer, but that's where I think a lot of the preparation is missing. We can do group projects and report out and do all these papers, and that's fine if that's part of it. But the real meat of it is putting them in environments and helping them work through the environments of which none of us are prepared for, period.
Thank you.
Okay.
I had the advantage in Aldine of being in the district for many years before I became superintendent. So I knew a lot about the community, and I also had seen the changes in the community. And I think what HD just said was an incredible suggestion that you received from someone who really understood the heartbeat of the community. And I believe as university people, and I saw the hands that went up, those of you who've had school experience and now you're working at the in higher ed, I think it's important to keep the students as focused on the reality of what's going on in schools as much as possible. If you're a Texas administrator in college, I don't think you have to know the complete accountability system in Texas, but I think it's important that your students as leaders and students as teachers understand those kinds of challenges that they will face. So I think being as close to the reality and the action research, I know that in some training that I went through with my school board from Broad, but we did case studies so that we literally looked at the actual districts, what their issues, their challenges were, and that helped us with our own leadership. I think knowing is the theory and everything of leadership is important, but I think knowing exactly what's happening on the ground is going to be some of the best preparation for a new administrator or a person, an administrator in a new role going into that position and having more of an opportunity to get acclimated in a positive manner as they get started.
I was fortunate, and my professors are all sitting at a table right in front of me, to have gone through an incredible preparation program at the University of Texas at Austin Cooperative Superintendency Program. Honestly, we did have a focus on social justice, and so it was already a part of my background. My mother was a professor at UT who taught Black Lit back in the 60s. She also taught at Del Valley High School when she was pregnant with me, because at the time, no other district would hire women with children under the age of 2 in the home. And mostly, if you admitted you were pregnant after they hired you, which she became pregnant after they hired her, most districts would force you to resign, but I walked the halls of Del Valley High School long before anybody, and she finally left 1 month after school was out and gave birth to me. So my community knew who I was and was very accepting. That was never the problem. What we need from university programs is implicit bias training. My teachers absolutely think, bless them, they really think they have high expectations for kids. And they just don't. And they don't know they don't. And we have made this our absolute focus. We have done better than most of our peers in recruiting teachers who look like our children. Right now, our children are 85% of our students are Latinx. We have about 9% African American. We have a couple of white kids from our teachers. We are now at 30% Hispanic in our teachers, so we're getting better. We're at 9% African American on our faculty, so we've done really well there. But our white teachers, try as they might, do not realize they still think they got there from hard work. And they still think that's the key to everything. And when you ask them what's wrong, well, these kids don't work very hard, or these families don't know what hard work is. And I'm like, darling, you just, I haven't cracked it. We have brought every kind of training we can, but it's just like we say with kids, you can't come to them in high school and start talking to them about a career path. In Texas, we press that button in 8th grade. So we have to tell our partners, if you're not talking to 3rd graders about what they want to be, if you come in 9th grade, it's too late. It's too late. So you've got to start earlier. And I'm asking the same thing from our universities. It can't just be a case study or a chapter or, in a book. You guys have got to start earlier, and you've got to hold that mirror up. Because I don't care what color you are, everybody has biases, and everybody just needs more understanding and more training about where we've been and why we haven't been able to crack that code. I mean, every program we start in a place like A-Leaf or Aldine or Del Valley, by God, this is going to be the year that we become that first district where the lower income children of color do just as well as the affluent white children. And how many years has this country been in existence? No one's cracked that code yet. And people a lot smarter than us have been working on this, so it's gonna have to take a more collective effort. That's what we need help with. We finally realized that that's what's holding us back. We can build the nicest buildings, and we are in school 24/7 in Del Valley. We never close. We're there all summer. We have to run our own after-school programs because, we don't have any rec centers or YMCAs either. So it's not the time, it's not the intensity, there's got to be something else, and I really think that's it.
Thank you. Questions from
Sorry,
the audience?
off soapbox
No.
now, we can go back to.
We're here to hear from you. Do we have any questions from the audience?
Hello.
Say, not for that mean.
I just got confirmation that our high school students have parked. They're on their way up.
Yay.
They
They're
will be
almost in the
recognized
building.
before we end our session. Questions? I'm the microphone runner this evening.
Hi, my name is Greg Worthington, a doctoral student at UT Austin in the Educational Policy and Planning program. My question is directed for Dr. Kelly Crook. So your district passed a bond in 2014, which included plans to build a new athletics facility and the CTE facility that you referenced. You have a great deal of economic development said to be coming towards your district, straight for your district, which sounds like it could put you in recapture. And
Yeah,
you also just said that you wouldn't build another high school unless the high school population at least doubled in size because you can't afford one. So my question is, how do you plan to achieve equity in your district when district leadership is unwilling to build a new high school but will build a new athletics facility and a CT facility?
I guess I don't understand the question on equity. Part of what's important to us is to learn from the examples of those who are around us. Most of the districts around us are losing enrollment, and their decision on how to keep people is to put magnet programs together. The problem we have with magnet programs is everyone doesn't get to go. And when you sign up and you didn't make the lottery or you didn't get it, then your dreams are crushed. Our goal is that everything we do, every student is able to participate in. We offer 21 different course sequences, 4- and 5-year sequenced CTE realms of study. I don't know what they call them in CTE, but 21 different ones, and every one of the students in the high school is eligible to take them. We have enough room for them to take them as an elective if they just want to take a cooking class, or they can take the 4- or 5-year and go all the way through our hospitality program. Nobody has to worry about getting transportation to another school or worrying whether or not they get in the program. The athletic facility was something that the community very much wanted because that's very, very important to our community. And yes, we don't have any gyms, any recreation centers. We have nothing in our school district for our students. Also, we're a 6A high school. In Texas, that means we're the big ones. We are in the same league as Westlake High School and Lake Travis High School, which if you follow football, they are like multi-year state champions, some of the best in the country. This is dangerous when you have kids that don't have facilities and can't prepare to play against teams like that. So we used to have 5 weight racks in our old high school. We had no field house. Our visiting teams would dress out in the cafeteria of my alternative high school across the way. When it came time to build a facility, our community said, we're embarrassed by the fact that our kids have to wait for days just to get onto a weight bench. That when teams come to play us, they have to dress out in the cafeteria of our alternative high school across the way. We want facilities that our kids will be proud of, and that when people come visit us, which they do to this day, they come in and they say, this is in Del Valley? Because when you say Del Valley in Central Texas, they go, oh, you work in Del Valley? Oh. And we're sick of it. So yeah, we built an athletic facility. We have an 80-yard turfed, padded, covered practice field. We have 32 custom-built weight racks that are in use by my kids, girls and boys, 24/7. They're up there on the weekends. They have never felt more valued. They've also never been healthier. We also made sure that one entire wing is custom locker rooms for every girls' sport, and the other one in the same square footage is custom locker rooms for the boys. Because being that your superintendent, 7 out of 9 board members, your CFO, and your district athletic director are all females, we're a little bit Title IX crazy in Del Valley. It's a very conscious decision going forward. Now that we do have money, we talked about the fact of, hey, we could build another high school, but there's no way, just like any of these other districts can tell you, that you can replicate all the same programs and all the same facilities at multiple high schools. We also don't need to. We have more square footage and acreage than most everybody else because we're out in the country. We also have the benefit that our high school is right smack geographically in the center of my district, so it's convenient for all of my parents. It's not over on one side or another side. So when I say that, that's equity to us. Equity is every one of our kids gets the same opportunities, not, well, we can only have 20 in this special program, so sorry, you didn't make it.
Thank you. Next question. We broke the ice with one question. We need to have a follow-up question. Next question. Up front? Oh, see, if you even pretend like you're raising your hand, I'm going to come get you.
Thanks so much for your comments. I have a question about racial literacy. So it sounds like all of you have said there's kind of a real conversation with teachers, the adults that are in front of young people, around how their communities, how the geography, right, even the landscape that they're in, the schools and the institutions are informed by racism, right? And so you talked about implicit bias, you talked about being prepared as a white leader going into black spaces, and that communities are becoming more and more diverse and classrooms are becoming diverse. How then not only the organization of UCA, where do you as leaders feel like, how did you have to push your staff and in yourselves to kind of create a desire to even build that racial grammar in the first place? And was there a cost in doing that? Was there retaliation from your higher ups and people who are around you? Is there a political cost to galvanizing that political will? I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
If I understood the context of your question correctly, the literacy is an example. We struggle across this country right now with getting students to some form of literacy by 8, 9 years old because of the cognitive ability and the learning that takes place between birth and 7 or 8 years old. And then the indicators that if a child is reading on grade level by roughly 3rd grade, that their future is much brighter. So I want to use that as an example. So in our district, we're, 85% of our students are either African American, Latino, and Latino, I wish it meant Mexican or from Mexico, but it's not. It's a variety of different cultures. We have invested heavily in attempting to understand, first and foremost with our teachers, to provide the information that they need to work within language barriers. And that's our number one issue. Did we ever face pushback? Yeah, the pushback we faced was when we were moving from more of an ESL bilingual to a dual language, because a lot of I mentioned this briefly earlier, many in our community at the time were still picturing the schools the way they were 25 years earlier. And dual language to them means, you mean we're going to teach every kid how to speak Spanish and they're not going to learn to speak English? That was the context that they were coming from. So our movement in dual language is an example to help in the literacy world faced a lot of challenges, not because they were opposed to kids reading on grade level by 3rd grade. They were opposed to what they perceived to be as a given in, if you will, that we're going to teach Spanish and we're not going to teach Spanish-speaking kids to speak English. I don't know how prevalent that was in other urban areas, but it was prevalent in ours. And what we have seen as a result of it is a significant increase in literacy by the 3rd, 4th, 5th grade level for many of our minority kiddos, particularly those who didn't speak the English language. And I don't know if that answers your question, but how can organizations like this help, support? I think in terms of preparing teachers, and for those of you that are in the college prep program, the teacher prep programs, for those elementary teachers, for those who are in elementary ed, this is mission critical right now, is addressing the literacy issue with a variety of different languages from a variety of different cultures. Does that help?
That's helpful. I wasn't clear though, what I meant by literacy is racial literacy. So,
Oh.
Yeah, so is there basically an understanding that you have to, when we talk about racism, you're not talking about interpersonal and internalized levels of racism, but you're talking about racism acting at an institutional and a structural level.
Yeah.
That is actually creating the iniquities that we're talking about in this actual conference. And each of you have said in some way, shape, or form that it is critical to actually address that, and you've done it in your own ways, but it's very personal. So what I wanted to know is what you suggest could be a way to do it on a more organizational and institutional level, and is there a cost to bringing that up in your jobs? That's what I was going to.
I'm sorry.
Kind of creating that.
Yeah.
You hit a little bit, but
Yeah.
I want to hear more because you're one person and there are costs,
Yeah.
right? But you all have very political roles as well. And I want to know where that tension is because we're all leaders in the space. But we all know that racism is a real thing.
Yeah.
Try to combat it, but how do you do it?
In mine, I'll let these guys respond as well. I don't sense the tension in my environment. In other words, I don't sense the pushback or the institutional racism that would lead to the outcomes we want being accomplished. I don't sense that. Matter of fact, I sense just the opposite. What I sense more is a lack of preparation to deal with that. Now, does the, I don't know if y'all remember when President Bush was president, when he was rolling out No Child Left Behind, he used the term the soft bigotry of low expectations. And I don't sense that anymore, and I don't sense pushback or any tension that's placed on me. So I don't feel any political fallout. I think, as I mentioned earlier, my greatest concern was, on a political level, was making sure the community in which I was serving and the children, the parents of the children that I was serving, understood that it's at the top, that type of racism or that type of belief didn't exist, and it wouldn't permeate through my organization. But that's just one guy speaking about it.
I know Dr. Chambers did not intend to be the last speaker on the panel this evening. He was craftfully working it over to his partners. But to respect everybody's time and the conference time, before you leave, I'm going to ask you to thank them. But before you applaud and thank them, don't leave, because we do have one student here from Worthing High School, and I want to introduce his art group, and he wants to tell UCA community thank you for giving them an opportunity to participate. So before we do that, let's give all three of our panelists a hand. As busy as we are in higher ed, I know that these folks sitting on the panel are super busy too, so for them to commit their time and be here with us this evening and not really understanding what the group would...
Wanda's not busy at all.
Yeah, Wanda.
She's not busy.
She'll do the
Wanda
next
looks so
panel.
relaxed and
Need
at
her tomorrow.
ease.
She'll be here tomorrow if you
She's
need her.
got the glow. And I want to thank Dr. Sonia Douglas Horsford too for